Listen up, because I'm about to drop a story that'll make you side-eye every perfect family gathering you've ever been to. Before we start, hit that subscribe button so you never miss another real-life jaw-dropper. And tell me in the comments which city you're watching from, because this one is about to get messy in the most unexpected way. I never thought a single sentence could freeze me the way hers did. "You're not invited." She said it so casually, so confidently, like denying a grandmother access to her own family celebration was some sort of administrative decision she had every right to make. My daughter-in-law, Rachel, stood there with her arms crossed, eyes sharp, blocking the kitchen doorway like she was the guardian of a kingdom I had somehow become unworthy of entering. And trust me, I'm not the type who imagines drama where none exists. I've spent my entire life avoiding conflict, choosing peace over pride, and convincing myself that small slights weren't worth the trouble. But this stung in a place I didn't even know could ache. You have to understand, I raised my son, Daniel, on my own after his father passed away when he was just 7. Every school project, every scraped knee, every late-night fever, every missed Christmas bonus because I had to leave work early. I did all of that gladly, not because I wanted praise, but because I loved him more than life itself. And when he grew up, built his career, and finally told me he'd met the one, I genuinely prayed she would be someone who saw him the way I did. Someone who loved him, supported him, and appreciated the values I worked so hard to instill. But from the beginning, Rachel treated me like an extra piece of luggage Daniel couldn't get rid of. She wasn't openly cruel. Not at first. Her weapon was exclusion, subtle hints that I was old-fashioned, inconvenient, an outdated piece of the family puzzle she was trying to rearrange. I kept trying, kept showing up with homemade meals, thoughtful gifts, babysitting offers, anything to earn even a sliver of warmth from her. But nothing softened her. The more I tried, the more she seemed to push me out. Still, nothing could have prepared me for that moment. "You're not invited," she repeated, slower this time, as if making sure I understood. "It's just, we want something small, intimate. It's best if you sit this one out." Sit this one out. Like I was a substitute player she had the authority to bench. "What exactly is the event?" I asked, because she hadn't told me. I had only overheard Daniel mentioning something about an anniversary dinner earlier that morning. She gave a tight smile. "Just a little celebration. Nothing you need to worry about. Nothing you need to worry about." That phrase was more insulting than the uninvite itself, but I felt a tightening in my chest, a sensation I hadn't felt in years. Something was off. Terribly off. It wasn't the exclusion alone, it was the secrecy, the tone, the way she seemed almost satisfied to deliver the line. I knew Rachel didn't like me, but this felt personal, intentional, like she wanted me to know I was being erased. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I didn't ask for explanations or try to guilt her into changing her mind. Instead, I nodded, stepped back, and let her close the conversation with a curt, "Thanks for understanding." But inside me, a spark lit. A spark I didn't recognize at first, because it had been years since I allowed myself to feel anything resembling anger. Yet there it was, rising, burning, not destructive, but awakening. I decided I wasn't going to sit this one out. I waited until the evening, when I knew Daniel would be home. I called him, acting casual, asking how his day went. He seemed distracted, almost nervous. When I brought up the dinner, he hesitated. "Mom, it's just a small thing. Nothing big." His tone didn't match Rachel's. His tone carried discomfort, guilt even. Something he didn't want to say, something he was holding back. That's when I made my decision, not out of spite, but out of a need to know the truth. To stop letting other people narrate my place in my own family. I had a feeling this wasn't about space or intimacy or small gatherings. I had a feeling this was about control. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized this wasn't the first time Rachel had made decisions that conveniently pushed me to the edges. But this time, the edges felt too far, too deliberate. So I planned. I didn't storm over uninvited or cause a scene. That's not who I am. Instead, I took a deep breath, gathered every ounce of dignity I had left, and decided that if they wouldn't tell me the truth, I'd find it myself. And trust me, what I discovered next didn't just hurt me. It shattered every illusion I ever had about what kind of family my son had married into. It started with a phone call from an old neighbor, Mrs. Collins, who happened to be at the same venue the dinner was supposedly being held at. She mentioned seeing Daniel and Rachel dressed up, greeting people at the entrance, people who definitely weren't just a small, intimate group. She described decorations, music, and a banner that read, Family Appreciation Night. Family Appreciation. The irony was almost too much to swallow. I thanked her, hung up, and sat in silence. If they were hosting a family event without me, then something deeper was going on, something they hoped I would never see. My heart beat hard in my chest, but not from pain, from clarity, from resolve. I grabbed coat, keys, and courage I thought I'd lost years ago. If they wanted to celebrate family, then they were about to learn exactly who built the foundation they were standing on. I drove to the venue with a calmness I didn't fully understand, the kind that settles over you when the truth is about to reveal itself, whether you're ready or not. The parking lot was full. Cars lined up in neat rows, and soft music drifted through the air as people walked toward the entrance dressed in their best. This wasn't intimate. This wasn't small. This was planned, decorated, catered, and curated. And more importantly, it was a family event. The kind of event I had never missed a day in my life until now. I stepped out of my car and kept my pace steady. I didn't sneak. I didn't lurk. I walked through those doors like someone who had every right to be there, because I did. The moment I entered, the room fell into a quiet murmur. I saw familiar faces, cousins, extended relatives, a few neighbors, even coworkers of my son. People who knew me. People who were surprised to see me. People who clearly thought I would be here. Then came the part that hit me the hardest. Several of them smiled warmly, waved, or said, "Oh, you made it." Made it. They thought I had been invited. They assumed I was part of this celebration, which meant they had no idea I had been deliberately cut out. My eyes scanned the room until they landed on Daniel, standing near a tall table, holding a glass of sparkling water, laughing politely at something a colleague said. He looked handsome in his dark blue blazer, hair neatly combed. But when he glanced in my direction, his face fell. The smile dropped. The confusion flickered. Then came the unmistakable flash of panic. Not guilt, panic. He quickly excused himself and started walking toward me, shoulders stiff, expression tightening with each step. Behind him, Rachel was speaking with a group of women, but when she noticed where he was headed, she turned. The moment her eyes locked on me, her entire face changed. Her smile vanished like someone had cut the lights. Daniel reached me first. "Mom, what are you doing here?" He whispered urgently, like I was a child who had wandered someplace unsafe. I raised my chin. I came to see what kind of intimate gathering I wasn't invited to. His eyes closed for a moment, as if he were bracing for impact. It's not what you think. I smiled, but not the polite one I'd used for years. This one held years of swallowed feelings behind it. Then explain it to me. Rachel swept in before he could answer, placing a hand on his arm protectively, almost possessively. Mrs. Bennett, she said, her tone dripping artificial sweetness. We didn't expect to see you here tonight. I met her gaze without blinking. Clearly. She hesitated, then plastered on a strained smile. We wanted this event to be simple, less complicated. Meaning, without me? I asked. Her silence was the first honest thing she'd given me in years. But before she could answer, an older man near the stage called out, Daniel, we're about to start with the family acknowledgments. Get ready. He looked straight at me and added, and wonderful to see you here. Wouldn't be a family night without you. Without me. That one sentence shattered whatever was left of the fake story they were building. Rachel's jaw tightened. Daniel's shoulders slumped. The truth was spilling everywhere now, and they couldn't stop it. I turned to walk toward the stage, not to interfere, not to embarrass anyone, but because people were waving at me, greeting me, acknowledging I was part of this night. All except the two people who had gone out of their way to erase me. As I made my way forward, I overheard whispers, not malicious, but confused. I thought she'd be sitting at the front table. Wasn't she supposed to give a little tribute speech? I saw her name printed on one of the cards earlier. Printed on one of the cards. And that's when it clicked. This wasn't Daniel's doing. This was Rachel. Something flickered inside me, not anger, but a realization so sharp, it cut through every doubt I'd carried. I had been painting Rachel as cold, dismissive, territorial. But this was deeper. This was manipulation, control, a carefully crafted image she didn't want disrupted by my presence. And if she was capable of excluding me from a family appreciation celebration, something meant to highlight roots, history, sacrifices. What else was she capable of? The lights dimmed slightly as people began moving to their seats. I found an empty chair near the end of the second row. As I sat, something unexpected happened. One by one, relatives shifted, moved bags, scooted chairs, until an entire space was made for me in the front row. Not by Daniel, not by Rachel, by the people who genuinely loved me. The people who remembered every year I hosted holiday dinners, every gift I handmade, every favor I did without ever expecting anything back. Rachel watched the scene unfold, her lips pressed into a thin line. She wasn't angry because I showed up. She was angry because she didn't control the narrative anymore. The host stepped onto the stage, microphone in hand, smiling brightly. Tonight is about honoring the pillars of our family, the ones who carried us through storms, who held us together, who showed us what resilience really looks like. His eyes landed on me, then softened. Some of us are here because of sacrifices we'll never fully understand. As he continued speaking, I felt Rachel's stare burning into the side of my face. But I also felt something else, something I hadn't felt in years. Belonging. True belonging, not because someone handed it to me, but because I had earned it through decades of love, loyalty, and quiet perseverance. Halfway through the event, a video montage played on the big screen. Family memories throughout the years. Birthdays, outings, reunions, holidays. And then I saw it. A photo of me holding baby Daniel in the hospital, smiling through exhaustion and grief. The caption read, the woman who held us together from the very beginning. The room clapped. Some stood. Rachel looked like she wanted the floor to swallow her whole. And in that moment, I understood something profoundly liberating. The illusion she built, the one where she controlled who mattered and who didn't, was shattered. Not because I forced it, not because I confronted her, but because the truth speaks even when you stay quiet. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need a scene. All I needed was to show up and let the truth reveal itself. But the night wasn't over. And what happened next? Even I didn't expect. The applause faded, the lights brightened again, and people began mingling near the buffet tables. I stayed seated for a moment, letting everything settle. The truth, the shock, the weight of years I had spent shrinking myself to keep peace that was never truly there. My hands rested gently in my lap, but inside, my heart beat with a steadiness I hadn't felt in so long. It wasn't pride. It wasn't victory. It was clarity. Daniel hesitated a few steps away, torn between joining me and following the silent commands radiating from Rachel's furious gaze. He looked like a man caught in two worlds, one built on genuine family love and one built on his wife's expectations. His feet shifted, then he finally walked toward me. "Mom," he murmured, voice tight, "I didn't know you were coming." I looked up at him, searching his face, my son's face, the boy I raised, the man who once cried into my shoulder when life felt too big. "Daniel," I said softly, "did you know I wasn't invited?" His jaw clenched, and that was the answer before he even opened his mouth. Rachel said she thought it would be easier, less complicated if I stayed away, I finished. He winced, eyes dropping to the floor. "Mom, it wasn't my idea." I believed him, and that was the painful part. Before I could respond, a shadow fell over us, Rachel. Standing rigid, lips pulled so tight, they looked like a single angry line. Her voice came out low, but sharp enough to cut glass. "Daniel, can I speak to you? Privately?" "No," I said before he could move. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't stand. I simply said it. And that one word froze both of them. Rachel's eyes widened. "Excuse me?" I said no. I repeated, calm and steady. "This concerns me. This concerns my family. If you have something to say, you can say it here." Her nostrils flared. "You're making a scene." I smiled, slow, controlled, and completely unbothered. "No, dear. A scene is when someone secretly uninvites a grandmother from a family celebration and hopes no one notices." Several heads nearby turned, quietly pretending not to listen, but very obviously hearing every word. Rachel's face reddened. "That's not. You don't understand. And explain it," I said. "I'm listening." But she couldn't, not without revealing the cracks in the polished image she'd spent years crafting. Daniel's voice came out small. "Mom, please, not here." And that hurt more than anything Rachel could ever say, because it meant he still feared conflict more than he respected truth. I stood up then, slowly, placing a gentle hand on his arm. "I'm not angry at you. I know you didn't plan this." Then I looked directly at Rachel. "But I am done letting someone decide where I do or do not belong." Before she could retaliate, a group of relatives approached us, 3 women and 1 older gentleman. The gentleman, Uncle Marvin, clapped a warm hand on my shoulder. "Finally found you," he said with a chuckle. "We were waiting on you for the family toast. You're speaking after Daniel." Rachel stiffened. "She's not," She wasn't. But Marvin waved her off. She's the matriarch. Of course she speaks. Matriarch. A word Rachel could never steal, no matter how hard she tried. I nodded gently. I'll be there. As they walked off, Rachel whirled on me. You had no right to come. None. And you had no right to pretend I didn't exist, I replied calmly. But here we are. She stepped closer, lowering her voice into a hiss. You're ruining everything. No, I said. I'm revealing everything. Her eyes darted around the room, realizing people were watching again, trying not to, failing miserably. She straightened her dress, smoothed her hair, and forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Well, she said, enjoy your moment. Then she walked away, heels clicking like tiny explosions on the floor. Daniel stood there, speechless, torn, afraid of choosing wrong, afraid of admitting he already had. Mom, he whispered, I don't know what to do. Then start with the truth, I said, for once. Before he could respond, the host called everyone to gather for the toast. People formed a semicircle near the front of the room. Daniel took his place, looking unsettled but resolute. When he began speaking, his voice trembled. Tonight is about honoring the people who shaped our families, and there's someone here who means more to me than I've ever said aloud. Rachel stiffened across the room. He looked at me, right at me. My mom, he said, voice breaking. You carried me through everything, and if anyone deserves to be appreciated tonight, it's you. A soft gasp moved through the crowd like a breeze. Rachel went pale. I didn't cry, not then. I held my posture, my breath, my dignity. But inside, decades of quiet sacrifice finally felt seen. The host motioned for me to step forward and give the next part of the toast. I walked up slowly, the room falling silent. Every face turned toward me with warmth, not pity, respect, not obligation. I took the microphone and let a beat pass. Thank you, I began softly, for remembering what family really means. I didn't look at Rachel. I didn't need to. The truth was already doing what truth does, shining. I spent many years believing that keeping quiet was the best way to keep peace. But silence doesn't create peace. It only creates space for mistreatment to grow. I paused, letting the words land. And tonight reminded me that family isn't defined by who controls the invitations. Family is defined by love, by loyalty, by honesty, and by showing up. A few people nodded. Some wiped tears. And tonight, I continued, I'm grateful I showed up. The room erupted into applause, loud, heartfelt, real. But even as I stepped back, something tugged at me. Because across the room, Rachel wasn't angry anymore. She looked scared. Not of me, not of the family, but of something else entirely. Something she had been hiding. Something that was about to come to light. And I had no idea that the biggest shock of the night was still waiting for me. After the applause faded and everyone began moving around again, I sensed it immediately. An energy shift. It was subtle, but unmistakable. The kind of shift that happens when truth brushes against something someone has been desperately trying to hide. Rachel wasn't pacing or snapping or trying to regain control anymore. She was frozen, eyes drifting everywhere except toward me, hands trembling slightly as she straightened the same fold in her dress over and over. And that's when my instinct whispered, something deeper is wrong, something beyond just excluding me. I didn't chase her down. I simply watched, observed, let her reveal herself without me saying a single word. A few minutes later, while people chatted and the servers refilled glasses, I saw her slip out a side door near the ballroom's hallway. Not storming, not rushing, sneaking. And if life has taught me anything, it's that people only sneak away at family events for one of two reasons. They're hiding tears or they're hiding truth. Without drawing attention, I quietly followed. The hallway was dimly lit, lined with framed photos of the venue's past events. The soft hum of music softened as the door closed behind me. I walked slowly, listening. And then I heard it. Rachel's muffled voice. Not crying, arguing. With someone. I paused at the corner. Not close enough to hear every word, but close enough to hear tone. And her tone wasn't angry. It was panicked. Panicked in a way that felt out of place for someone who had spent the whole evening snarling at me like I was ruining her perfect night. Then a male voice responded, deep, familiar. When he stepped into view, my breath caught. It wasn't Daniel. It wasn't a relative. It wasn't anyone from our side of the family. It was Andrew, Rachel's coworker, a man Daniel had mentioned once or twice before, never suspiciously, never dramatically, just in passing. Someone Rachel worked closely with, someone Daniel trusted without question. But what I saw in that hallway was not professional, and it wasn't friendly. It was intimate, tense, loaded. Rachel grabbed his arm. You can't say anything, not tonight. Andrew shook his head. He deserves to know. This isn't fair. He can't know, she hissed. Not now, not with all these people here. I just need time to. She stopped mid-sentence when she saw me. For a moment, no one moved, no one breathed, no one blinked. Her face went entirely blank, drained of color, drained of excuses. Andrew straightened awkwardly. Mrs. Bennett, Rachel cut him off. This is not what it looks like. It rarely is, I said softly. She shook her head rapidly, stepping forward like she could physically block the truth from reaching me. Please, just go back inside. This doesn't involve you. But I had lived long enough to know when life is about to split open, when secrets claw their way to the surface, whether anyone is ready or not. Tell me the truth, I said calmly, firmly. What doesn't Daniel deserve to know? Rachel's eyes flicked back and forth, panic rising like a tide she couldn't outrun. She opened her mouth, maybe to lie, maybe to beg, maybe to spin a story. But Andrew stepped forward first. He needs to know the baby might not be his. The hallway collapsed into silence. The lights buzzed. My heartbeat thudded in my ears. The ground seemed to sway beneath my feet. I stared at them both, waiting for someone, anyone, to say it was a misunderstanding, a joke in terrible taste, a misheard sentence. But no one corrected it. Rachel's face crumpled with shock, betrayal, and fury. Andrew, you promised. He said. I promised until it started hurting him. He said quietly. He deserves the truth, Rachel, and so does she. My breath caught. Is it true? Rachel's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Her confidence, her cold certainty, had shattered like glass. Finally, she whispered, I don't know. 3 words. Only 3. But those 3 words detonated everything. Andrew ran a hand through his hair. We were close before she married Daniel. After too, for a while. We ended it. But when she found out she was pregnant, she wasn't sure. Stop, Rachel snapped. Just stop. But she wasn't in control anymore. Not of him, not of me, not of this moment. And suddenly, every piece clicked together. The tension in their marriage, Rachel's need to control everything, her fear of me, her obsession with keeping me away, her panic when I showed up, her desperation to avoid vulnerability in front of me, her need to prevent any moment where the family might look too closely at her, and then her volcanic reaction when I threatened the image she'd spent years polishing. She didn't uninvite me because she disliked me. She uninvited me because she was terrified I'd see through her. And I had. Slowly, I stepped forward. Does my son know any of this? Rachel shook her head violently. No, and he doesn't need to. Not tonight, not after everything he planned. Please, please don't ruin this for him. I stared at her, my heart pounding so hard it hurt. You think I would ruin this for him? You? Tears spilled down Rachel's cheeks. Ugly, frantic tears. I made a mistake, she whispered. A stupid, stupid mistake. But I love him. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to think there was remorse. But the truth was clearer than ever. She didn't love Daniel enough to be honest. She loved the life he gave her, the life she could control, the life built on lies she desperately hoped would stay buried. But the truth has a way of rising, sometimes quietly, sometimes violently, but always inevitably. I took a deep breath. I'm not telling him here, not in front of an audience, not while he's trying to celebrate. I paused. But this conversation isn't disappearing. Andrew nodded, sadly. He deserves to hear it from someone who loves him. Rachel sobbed harder. Please, please don't take him from me. I didn't respond. Not yet. Because the truth wasn't about me taking anything. The truth was about what she had already destroyed. I turned and walked back toward the ballroom, each step heavy, trembling, final. Because now I didn't just know about a lie. I knew about a fracture deep enough to split a family clean in half. And the hardest part? This time, I had no idea which side my son would choose. For a long moment, nobody said a word. The air in that decorated restaurant felt thick, heavy, almost choking. All eyes were still fixed on me as I stood there, holding myself upright with every ounce of dignity I had left. Daniel looked like he wanted to melt through the floor. Rachel looked like she wished the universe would swallow her whole. And the rest of the guests? They were frozen, torn between their curiosity and the awkwardness clawing through the room. But I wasn't backing down. Not anymore. Not after everything they had done. Ma, please, Daniel finally whispered, stepping forward. I raised a hand gently but firmly. Don't ma me right now. Just tell me the truth. Why am I not invited to a dinner celebrating family? No one breathed. Rachel's lips parted first. It's not what you think. I cut her off with a soft laugh. Rachel, my dear, I already know what I think. What I want now is what you think. Her eyes darted around, searching for a lifeline that wasn't there. Daniel scrubbed his hands over his face and sighed, the kind of sigh that only comes from getting caught. Finally, he muttered, we didn't want you to feel uncomfortable. Period. Uncomfortable? I repeated slowly, as if tasting the word. Why would I feel uncomfortable? I've raised this family. I've held it together through every storm. What part of this evening would make me uncomfortable? He didn't answer. He couldn't answer. So I turned to Rachel. What about you? Do I embarrass you? Do I ruin your picture-perfect moments? Do I not speak the right way? Dress the right way? Or was I simply inconvenient for your guest list? Her throat bobbed as she tried to swallow. It wasn't like that. Then what was it? I asked, softer this time, because softness makes people confront the truth louder than anger ever will. Rachel wrung her hands. Daniel said you might overshadow things. I blinked. That one I didn't expect. Overshadow, I repeated. Me? Daniel's face turned crimson. I didn't mean it like that. No, I said gently. Tell me how you meant it. I'm genuinely curious. He hesitated, then exhaled. You know a lot of people here, Ma. People respect you. more than us sometimes. And I didn't want anyone thinking this dinner was about you instead of us. I stared at him. For the first time in my life, my own son felt threatened by me. Not my presence, not my decisions, but my legacy. Daniel, I finally said, my voice low but steady, if the respect people have for me threatens you, then that's not my burden to carry. That's yours. Gasps rippled across a few nearby tables. But I didn't care. The truth was long overdue. And Rachel, I continued, turning to her with the same calmness. If you thought excluding me would make your family image cleaner, then you need to look in the mirror. Because the only messy thing here is your cruelty. She flinched. Good. She should. But then something unexpected happened. Something I never saw coming. A small voice spoke up from the far side of the room. Grandma? Everyone turned. It was Lily, my 8-year-old granddaughter, standing near the cake table, clutching a tiny purse shaped like a strawberry. Her big eyes shimmered with confusion and fear. Oh, my heart nearly broke, right there. She walked toward me slowly, then wrapped her tiny arms around my waist. Why didn't you come? Daddy said you were sick. A sharp pain shot through me. Sick. That was their excuse. I knelt down, holding her cheeks in my hands. No, sweet girl, I wasn't sick. I was told not to come. Her brows pinched. But why? You're grandma. Grandma is always invited. The room grew so quiet, you could have heard a pin drop in the next building. Daniel squeezed his eyes shut. Rachel looked ready to faint. And I felt my strength return in full. I kissed Lily's forehead. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, sweetheart. Big ones. But we fix them by being honest. She nodded, trusting every word from my mouth. I stood again, this time feeling taller than the entire room. I didn't come here to make a scene, I said clearly, addressing the guests who were still watching reverently. I came here because lies have a way of poisoning families. And when I learned what was happening, I refused to let poison sit unchecked. A murmur of agreement rose from the older guests, neighbors, community members, people who'd known me for years. One of them, Mr. Henderson, even called out, "You tell him, Mary. Ain't no one excluding the woman who built half this neighborhood." Laughter broke through the tension, and for a moment, I allowed myself a small smile. But Daniel, my son, he finally cracked. He stepped forward, eyes glassy, voice shaking. "Ma, I'm sorry. I messed up. I don't know what I thought. I let stupid insecurities get in the way. You didn't deserve any of this." Rachel slowly followed. "I'm sorry too. I thought keeping things small would make it easier. But it was wrong, all of it." I nodded, not forgiving yet, but acknowledging. "Apologies are a start," I said softly. "But fixing the damage is where the real work begins." Daniel swallowed. "What do we do?" I took a deep breath, letting the weight of years, memories, sacrifices, settle inside me. "You start," I said slowly, "by telling the truth to every person in this room." Both their faces drained. "And," I added, "you start by telling your daughter why her grandmother stood outside, crying in the cold." A hush fell. "Do that," I finished, "and maybe we can rebuild." Then I looked directly into the camera one of the guests was holding up and added with a warm but firm tone, "And to everyone watching, if you're still here with me, make sure you hit that subscribe button and tell me in the comments what city you're watching from." The room erupted, not with cheers, not with celebration, but with something even more powerful. Real, raw, reckoning. And it wasn't over yet. The aftermath of the confrontation didn't unfold like a movie scene where everyone hugs and cries and magically becomes a better person. Real life isn't scripted that neatly. Real families don't heal in one night. And trust, once broken, doesn't snap back into place like a rubber band. It bruises, it stretches, and sometimes it never returns to its original form. But healing can still begin, even if it's slow, imperfect, and lined with scars. Daniel cleared his throat and stood in front of the guests. His voice shook, but he didn't try to hide it. "Everyone, I owe you all an apology," he began. "Tonight was supposed to honor the people who shape us, and the one person who shaped me the most. I treated her like she didn't matter." Eyes widened, heads turned. A few people nodded in agreement. Rachel joined him hesitantly, fingers twisting nervously. "And I made things worse. I cared too much about how things would look, and not enough about who actually mattered." Their words weren't perfect, maybe not even enough, but they were honest. And sometimes honesty, even in its smallest form, is the first brick in rebuilding something broken. I watched them quietly, my hands clasped in front of me. My heart didn't swell, and I didn't feel some dramatic wave of forgiveness wash over me. Instead, I felt something steadier, recognition, acknowledgement that they were trying. Maybe fumbling, maybe late, but trying. When they finished speaking, the room fell into a strange silence, not uncomfortable, but reflective. People were processing, observing, recalibrating. The illusion Rachel had worked so hard to curate had cracked open like a dropped porcelain plate, and through the fractures, the truth was finally visible. Then little Lily tugged on my sleeve. "Grandma," she whispered, "are you mad at Mommy and Daddy?" I knelt down again, because some conversations require eye level. "I'm not mad at them, sweet girl," I said gently. "I'm just hurt. And when grown-ups get hurt, it takes a while to feel okay again." She nodded, like she understood more than any 8-year-old should. "Can you still come to my dance show next week?" That question softened something in me. "Of course," I said with a smile. "No one can keep me away from that." She grinned, the first genuine smile I'd seen all evening, and ran back to her friends. Children have a magical ability to move forward without dragging the weight of adult mistakes with them. Sometimes I wish grown-ups could do the same. A few minutes later, Daniel approached cautiously. "Ma," he said, "can we talk outside?" I nodded and followed him through the sliding doors that led to a patio strung with soft, warm lights. The air was cool, calm, much quieter than the storm inside. He shoved his hands into his pockets, staring at the concrete. "I don't know how to fix this," he admitted. "I don't know where to even start." "You start," I replied, "by being honest with yourself. Why did you feel the need to hide me? What were you afraid of?" He hesitated, voice barely above a whisper. "I thought, if people saw how much they admired you, they'd see how little I've done compared to you." I felt like I could never measure up. Oh, there it was, the truth beneath the truth. I didn't feel triumph or satisfaction. I felt sorrow, because insecurities like his don't grow overnight. They take years, fed by shadows no one talks about. "Daniel," I said softly, "you don't have to measure up to me. You're not supposed to. You're supposed to build your own life, your own path. I never wanted you to compete with me." His shoulders sagged. "I know. I just didn't know how to say it." "You say it," I answered, "by doing better going forward." We stood there for a while, not speaking, not hugging, not magically repairing years of unspoken fears. Just standing, side by side, knowing the past couldn't be erased, but the future wasn't doomed. When we went back inside, Rachel approached me next. Her face was blotchy, her eyes swollen. "I'm sorry," she said, voice trembling. "I thought excluding you would give me more control." But it only exposed how little I understood about family. I nodded slowly. "Rachel, I don't hate you. I just need time, and honesty, and respect. If you can give me that, maybe one day this won't hurt as much." She swallowed hard. "I can do that." We didn't hug, we didn't bridge every gap, but we stood there without anger. And sometimes, especially in complicated families, that's progress. Later, as dessert was served and the guests returned to quieter conversations, I found a seat by the corner window. I watched the people I loved move through the room. A little fractured, a little humbled, a little changed. And for the first time, I didn't feel invisible. I didn't feel excluded. But I also didn't feel triumphant. I felt grounded, real, human. The truth had been messy, painful, and embarrassing for them, but it was freeing for me. As the night wound down, some of the older guests came over to hug me or give a reassuring pat on the shoulder. "You handled it with grace," one woman said. "You showed them what strength really looks like," another added. But the truth was simpler. I wasn't trying to be strong. I was just tired of being silent. As I got ready to leave, Daniel walked me to the door. "Can we have dinner sometime this week?" he asked quietly. "Just us?" "Maybe," I said, "one step at a time." He nodded, accepting the boundary without flinching. Outside, the night air felt different, lighter, almost peaceful. The bitterness hadn't disappeared, but it had settled into something manageable, something honest. And as I walked toward my car, I looked back one last time through the restaurant window. I saw my son carrying Lily, her head resting on his shoulder. I saw Rachel wiping down a table with slow, thoughtful movements. I saw a family not perfect, not broken, just learning. And maybe that was enough. Before driving away, I opened my phone, hit record, and said softly, "If you've stayed with me through this whole story, make sure you're subscribed. And please comment the city you're watching from. I want to know where my storytellers are listening." Then I closed the phone, took a deep breath, and drove home, carrying both the pain and the peace that came from finally speaking what needed to be spoken. Not a happy ending, not a tragic one, just real, just life.